Hello friends, I am on a cycling film kick. Bear with me if you're here for the photography stuff. I will get back to it eventually, but as many of you know, cycling is a big part of my life. I am hoping to make it a much larger part of my life moving into the future. I think there's a lot of opportunity here in the US to turn our country into one of the most remarkable cycling locations in the world. Let's steal a little bit from our European brothers and sisters in the Netherlands and in Denmark, and let's get it done. So I'm going to give you a list of 5 bikes that I think are very interesting propositions for anyone who is either interested in getting into cycling or someone who's been away from cycling for a long time but wants to get back into it. Now here's the thing. Cycling has changed a lot. Bikes have changed a lot in the last 10, 15, 20 years. If you haven't been on a bike in a while, you're probably going to be impressed or terrified in the number of choices that are out there. Again, I'm not a bike expert. These are bikes that have popped up on my radar over the past couple of months that I thought are very intriguing. And were I not riding a Salsa and happy with it, I would be looking for a bike like what I'm about to list. So I've got 5 bikes that I think are interesting, but the first point I want to make is any bike that gets you on the road, anything, I don't care how old, how slow, how heavy, how dorky, whatever, how unreliable, it doesn't matter. If the bike gets you on the road, then ride it. If you can get a free bike, if you go to Walmart and buy a bike, if you go to a local bike shop, if you find an abandoned bike locked to a tree, missing all the parts except for the frame, and you put it back together, it doesn't matter. What matters is getting on the road and riding and enjoying it and trying to utilize the bicycle as part of your life. All right, so let's move in here. Bike number 1, and these are in no particular order. I had them in order, and then I realized it didn't really make any sense, and it doesn't matter. The number 1 bike on the list is the Salsa Fargo Journeyman. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I think this is a good bike. Salsa has made this bike available in every size and format and layout you can possibly imagine. So you can get a Salsa Journeyman 700C tire, you can get a 650B tire, you can get drop bars, you can get flat bars, you can get it decked in any way or shape that you're looking for. That's kind of rare, although it's happening more and more. Bikes are, and another bike on the list that we're gonna get to has somewhere between 9 and 13 levels that you can get. So it's kind of staggering. But if you go to REI, which is one of the places that you can buy the Salsa Journeyman, in fact, I bought one last summer for my wife. We bought a 650B drop bar version of the Journeyman. Now, I should have bought the flat bar version for her. And also my wife has arthritic shoulders, and so the bike didn't come with front suspension. And she rode it for a couple of weeks and said, yes, I love this bike, but I want to go back to my old piece of crap Trek 8000 from like 1972 because it has a suspension fork and I'm used to it. So what I love about this from Salsa is they've made it available in all these different trims and styles. So there's pretty much anything out there that you want, tire size, handlebars, etc., and also a full range of components. Secondly, Salsa has always done this well, but Salsa's paint schemes and color schemes are fantastic. And that might sound trivial on the surface, but it's not. And I'll equate this to another analogy, which is guitar. When I started playing guitar, and I suck at guitar, but when I started playing, the guy who was teaching me said, look, when you get a guitar, get one that when you look at it makes you want to play. So I have a Johnny Cash black Yamaha acoustic electric, and when I look at it, it reminds me of how bad I am at guitar, but it also makes me want to play. And so when I see the Salsa website and the jet black Salsa frame and all these mods that are out there available, that's a great bike. So it's about 1,100 bucks. For those of you who think that's a lot for a bicycle these days, and it might be, depending on your budget, as you'll see, there's a lot of other bikes on this list that are more expensive. And again, if you can get a free bike, get it. If you can get an inexpensive bike, get it. The reason I think the $1,000 to $1,100 range is a smart range is because I've had friends that went inexpensive in the past. They bought bikes that were, oh, I could buy that, 1,100's way too much, I'm never gonna spend that on a bike. I found one for 400, and the 2 problems occur. Rust, everything rusts almost immediately, and 2, they have a component failure. So they come with cheap components, shifters, cables, cassettes, everything, and they break. And then you're back in the bike shop paying for another cassette, you're paying for repairs, and it adds up. So the classic cliche of you get what you pay for. I think the 1,000 to 1,100 range, you can get a bike that will last you for years that you can grow into. The Salsa Journeyman is a bike that you can grow into. Okay, bike number 2 on the list, the Trek Dual Sport 4. I might actually end up buying this for my wife because it's kind of an updated version of her old Trek mountain bike. Flat bars, very simple, Aluminum frame, nothing super fancy, but nothing trashy. It's a good frame. It has decent components. It's got a flat bar. It has a very clean layout on the bar system. I really like how Trek does that. It's fitted for bottle mounts, fenders, racks, anything. You can modify it any way you want. It also has a lockout on the front fork. So on a suspension fork, if you're climbing uphill, you often don't need that suspension. And when the suspension's going up and down while you're climbing uphill, it's inefficient in terms of power. So you can lock that fork out, it becomes rigid as you're climbing, and then when you get to the top and go downhill, you can turn and unlock that fork and get your suspension back. It's a super slick thing. I wish my Salsa had that actually. I would love to have front suspension, and I would love to have a lockout on the fork. Can't have everything. I also want a toilet made of gold. It's just not in the cards. Okay, so Trek, the second part of the Trek I like is that one, killer color this year, 2020, I'm not sure what the 2021 is, but I like Trek stores. Trek stores stock so many different bikes that most likely if you go in and you wanna look at something, they're gonna have the model that you're after. That's kind of rare for an indie bike store because they sell multiple brands, they only carry a couple different versions. And Trek, if you go in and they have a Dual Sport 2 and you say, okay, my size is a medium, I need the 4, they're not gonna balk at ordering that for you because it's a Trek. They're gonna order whatever you want. So there's a great Trek store in Albuquerque. I took my wife there. They were professional friendly, etc. All right, bike number 3 is a bit of a curve. I don't wanna throw the heat, I wanna throw the deuce. All right, so it's a curve. This is the Priority 600. Now, Priority is a brand you may or may not know anything about. They sell a very unique style of bike, but I have to warn you, this is by far the most expensive bike on the lineup. This is about a $2,400 bike. Now, you might be thinking, you're out of your mind, I'm never gonna pay that much. But remember, when you're cycling, you're saving money. Gas, insurance potentially, maintenance on your car, your health insurance can go down, etc. There's a lot of ways, and I'm gonna do a lot more films about the sort of economic angle of riding a bicycle. But Priority makes a very peculiar style of bike that is probably one of the best commuting style bikes that you can get. Let me explain what it is. They're black. I think you only get one color option. I'm 99% sure they're made out of aluminum. They come with 650B tires and a very interesting style of tire that it's capable of riding gravel and also commuting. The bike comes with a dyno, which means that you have constant light source on the front and back of the bike. That is essential. It doesn't matter what kind of riding you do, you have to have lights. And for you roadies out there who are snobby, get over it. As a driver, I love coming around the corners in the mountains and seeing that flash. It alerts me to the fact that there's a rider on the road, potentially more. Anytime I ride with friends and they don't have lights, I pull the extras off of my bike and put them on theirs. I've had multiple people pull me over the years and say, I appreciate you having lights on there because otherwise I never would have been able to see you. So Priority also comes with and the reason it's called a 600 is it has what's called a pinion gearbox. And I think that this is one of the coolest things you're ever gonna find. The pinion gearbox is an internal gearbox. It has a 600% gear range over 12 gears, which is basically in essence the same as if you had a bike with 3 sprockets and 30 gears. But it's sealed inside. It was designed by someone in Stuttgart who used to work for Porsche. It is a beautiful mechanism. You're gonna start to see a lot more of these on a lot of different kinds of bikes. There's far less maintenance. The Priority also comes with a carbon belt drive instead of a chain. So there's no noise, there's no oil, there's no maintenance. They last forever, they're super quiet. This is a very intriguing bicycle. I've even seen a Priority, I've never seen it in person. I've seen a Priority, they all come with flat bars. I've seen someone modify it to put drop bars on it. If I had a drop bar Priority 600, I would probably ride it a ton. It is such a great bike. It's rack and fender compatible. What else do we have here? It's, I think, one of the most interesting, solid, smart purchases. It is expensive, but again, you're getting all this stuff that you would have to put on. Most other bikes you would have to add. You'd have to add the dyno. You're not gonna get the pinion. You're not gonna get the gate drive. You're not gonna get the fender, rack and fender mounts. It's a pretty cool thing. There's a guy up in Colorado, I remember his name, Ryan Van Duzer. He has a YouTube channel, very popular cycling channel. He has a Priority and he's done a bunch of different films about it. He will explain this far better than I ever will. So if you're interested in the Priority, that's something to look at. All right, bike number 4 is the Specialized Diverge. Specialized is another massive brand. Trek, Giant, Specialized, etc. These are mostly household names in bicycles. I used to live in Orange County, California. There was a Specialized dedicated bike shop in Newport Beach. Specialized makes, I think, has always made great bikes. and they make an incredibly diverse range of bike. The Diverge in particular is their gravel bike. The reason I'm steering a lot of you towards gravel bikes is they are now selling about 9 gravel bikes for every road bike. A gravel bike is a Swiss Army of bikes, Swiss Army knife of bikes. You can run narrow tires, wide tires, a range of components, bags, panniers. A lot of these are incredibly versatile bikes. Specialized just announced the new 2021 Diverge. I thought there were 9 versions of the bike. I just looked at the Specialized site. I think there's 13 versions of the bike, going from 10,000, and if you think 10,000 is a lot for a bike, it is, all the way down to like 1,100. And there's every version, flat bars, drop bars, etc. They also have what's called Future Shock, not on all the models, but some of the higher end models, and that is a suspension system built into the stem. Now, the bike geeks out there, this sort of rattled people. There were people that loved it, people that hated it. I think it's a great idea. I think front suspension on pretty much every bike with the ability to turn it on and off is sort of the ideal scenario. Doesn't matter to me if it's a little heavier or it's a little different feeling. I just love it, especially on a long descent or on a long gravel road where you're going downhill with no suspension and your hands on the drops. It can get really tiring very quickly. But Specialized makes great stuff. Their bikes are easy to get repaired. It's definitely worth looking at. And they make stuff for the high-end, super professional gravel racer, the $10,000 bike. I would be so paranoid about riding that bike, I probably never would. I could never lock it anywhere, leave it. I'm happy with my mid-level expense bike. All right, last bike, which I've never seen in person. I've never ridden one, but I kind of have a bike crush on this bike. And I'm sure that people are gonna talk shit about me for having a bike crush on this bike, but it's a variety of factors that's led me here. The last bike on the list is the Jamis Renegade. And Jamis, I would also lump into the, I don't mean this in a bad way, like second tier or fringe brands, and not in terms of the quality of the bikes they make, but only in terms of they're basically the size of the brand. So again, Trek, Specialized, Giant, etc. Everybody seems to know those brands. Schwinn, historical, but Jamis is sort of a smaller brand that makes a very specific kind of bike, and they make a bike called the Renegade. Now, I first saw this in a film about the Dirty Kansas bike race, and Jamis sponsors a rider. I think his name is Thomas Turner. They did a doc film about him running the Dirty Kansas. I saw this bike. He's riding multiple versions of it. And I was like, that is a pretty hot bike. Then I went to the Jamis site, and I have to say, Jamis does an amazing job on their website of showing this bike off. I love the treatment online of how they have the bike, and then they have tabs across the bottom, which is road, gravel, commuting, bikepacking, and cyclocross. And as your cursor goes across each one, they show the bike setup in a commute format, in a bike pack format. This is the Swiss Army knife of bikes. I think Jamis is affordable. I think their style is really fantastic. Again, I think the Salsa design and style is beautiful. I think Jamis is as well. I also like the films that they put together about their riders, and Salsa makes great films as well. All these brands have full-on content crews that are out producing stuff all the time. But I think this bike looks good, I think it's priced right, and I think you can set it up any way you want. And the great thing is, when you set up a bike for bikepacking, it doesn't mean you can't turn it into a road bike when you have road rides, or turn it into a commuter bike if you need to commute. These bikes are all multi-purpose. I think these are bikes that will last a long time. These are bikes that have good enough components that you don't have to worry about failure or replacement in the short term. I think once things wear out, you can replace them, and the frames and forks and general components of these bikes are gonna last a long time. And just think about, you know, for an $1,100 investment, $1,000 investment, you can get something that's gonna be with you for years and years and years. I think my Salsa was just under $3,000. That was back in 2013, 14. That was a complete titanium bike, which was rare. You could easily spend $10,000, $12,000 for a titanium frame by itself. So the Salsa to me was a bargain, and it's a bike that's lasted all this time, and I have literally had to do nothing to it. And that was the point that I wanted to do, was to give you bike options that aren't gonna break the bank, but are also gonna be jacks of all trades, if you will. So again, the key is to ride anything that you can get on. It does not, I just made the example that my wife is riding a bike that God knows how old it is, barely anything works on it. Parts of it are taped together. She loves it, and I cannot get her to get rid of it. So fall in love with your bike and fall in love with the ride.